Hello and welcome to the latest of my deep dive videos. Today I'm going to explore the exciting journey of Mercury through the sign of Gemini, which begins on the 11th of June. I'm going to share with you how long Mercury is going to be here, what its themes are in this sign, which of course it rules, when it was last in this sign, what the wider context of Mercury's influence on us all in 2023 is based upon. But then I'm going to share with you the event chart from a solar perspective, where we can all collectively relate to this event, but also from the Pisces chart, based on universal time, which actually has an ascendant in Virgo, the other sign that Mercury also rules. I'm going to share with you why Pluto is incredibly important to this particular transition, and also why the moon's combination with Neptune can bring some mischief. Usually Mercury through Gemini is very much about quick wits, a lot of speed of thought and sharing of ideas, but that combination between the moon and Neptune can bring some distortion, so I need to unpack that for you as well. I'm then going to share with you the 4 standout aspects that Mercury makes in its 16-day journey. Finally, I will share with you each of the 12 zodiac signs from Aries through to Pisces to give you a flavour of what we can all expect in terms of our sun or our ascendant. If you're new here, it's great to have you with us. I'd be honoured if you would subscribe. Please click or tap on the bell notification symbol. If you're a returning visitor, thank you for joining me once more. Sorry about the throat. And also, if you'd like to get your free daily horoscope fired to your device each morning, please see the subscription link below. Within these, I provide an overview of the most important aspect of each day, as well as the actual zodiac sign forecast. So as we make our way into this event, Mercury has been in the sign of Taurus since the 3rd of April. And then it went into its pre-retrograde shadow on the 7th, before fully putting the brakes on the 21st, before emerging from the retrograde on the 15th of May and the post-retrograde on the 31st of May. So things have been feeling very sluggish for you, but particularly if you are a fire or air sign, it wouldn't be a surprise. Also, if you are a fixed sign, that also could have been an issue. So that's the angles that feed into Mercury in Taurus across Leo, Scorpio and Aquarius. But for other people, perhaps it's not been quite the challenge, but I think the sign of Taurus is very much about resources. It's about our sense of self-worth, it's about money, and of course we've all been facing massive headwinds, and that's a reality. Uranus has been pushing us to try to come up with new and fresh ways to deal with that reality. The North Node, in its conjunction with Jupiter, has made us aware of our potential and has brought some good things into play, and perhaps also delivered some karma in some ways. But I think Mercury emerging from Taurus, where it's slowed down, is something we could really welcome. So its arrival at 10:27 a.m. universal time on the 11th, really something to be excited about. Now, of course, Mercury is known as the winged messenger. It's also an androgynous influence, so very much fitting for the days and times we live in. And it's going to be in the sign of Gemini through to the 27th, so 16 days in total. Now, the theme of Mercury in Gemini is very much to do with agility, because the quick wits, but also the flexing. So the quick wits is the air, the flexing is the mutability. And we can potentially have lots of different thoughts going on all at the same time. This dexterous energy provides a lot of vivacity and sparkle, especially socially. So expect a lot more interaction, invites, text messages and emails are going to be pinging backwards and forwards. It's a great time to be more versatile about our thinking, but also perhaps think about our belief systems. I think the sign of Taurus is very much about our values. Our belief systems are the things that we might instantly feel that we want to express when we're having a chat with a friend, perhaps in a bar, or perhaps on Twitter or something like that. But also the sign of Gemini can be great if we want to share ideas that we have. So if you're someone who's very much into technology or blogging, this can be a time to really shine and sparkle. But also it's a great time to learn things. So if it means because of your circumstances that go into a residential institute of learning is not possible, this would be a great time to learn things online, for sure. And if you are a curious and inquisitive person, this part of your nature can also be turned up to max. But the sign of Gemini has a reputation of being a bit two-faced. Is it justified? Well, obviously the icon is the twins, and I have some very good friends who are Geminis, and it is quite interesting that they do have different types of responses to different types of situations. So what I think we could say about Geminis is that they're very, very flexible. And, you know, some people who perhaps take what people say at face value and want that to be an incontrovertible fact may struggle with the flexibility that Geminis have, because they could discuss the same topic but have completely different viewpoints or different ways of presenting that information on any given days. But also a great ability to get on with all sorts of different types of people. So it's not Gemini's fault that that's a gift, but it can seem to be maybe a little bit maneuverable, and that could make some people a little bit uneasy. But in terms of this particular event, Mercury is angling to Pluto, which on the same day, the 11th of June, has just turned back into the sign of Capricorn within its retrograde, where it's going to be through to the 21st of January next year. But it's still a trine, which is 120 degrees and very enabling. Now, I have this in my natal chart. Funnily enough, I have Mercury in Capricorn, in the third house, very Gemini-like, and Pluto's in Virgo, which obviously is the other sign that is governed by Mercury. So people who have Mercury-Pluto influences in their natal charts tend to be researchers, tend to enjoy analysis, working things out, have an appreciation of perhaps mathematics. Not that I do, for sure, but for me it's very much to do with the astrology and the psychology. So what I feel that particular influence gives us an opportunity to do is have lots of chats, but actually try to form some deeper ideas and deeper meanings that come from that fluid conversation. But if we look at the event chart in terms of Placidus, which is of course what I use, it means that Mercury goes right to the top of the chart. So in natal astrology, whatever planet is nearest that 10th house cusp, and this is why I don't like equal house so much, because the 10th house cusp is not actually reflective of actually where it really is. So on this particular event, you can see the 10th house, which is the midday point of the event, so where we're getting the greatest amount of sunshine. Mercury is right there at the top, and although the midheaven is just at the end of Taurus, it suggests how we think in terms of our connection to the wider world is going to be a critical factor over the next 16 days. But you can see Pluto in the Placidus chart is actually in the 5th house of play, so perhaps we have an opportunity to try to use the seriousness and orthodoxy of Pluto in Capricorn, but applied to the precision but also flair that Mercury in Gemini can bring. But the other thing to spot with the event chart is the ascendant, just like my Pluto position, in the precise Virgo at 6 degrees 15 minutes. So the ability to really peer into situations definitely enhanced with this chart. But The big challenge is that conjunction. You can see the moon is actually separating from Neptune, but they're so close, it's less than 1 degree, and critically also in the 8th house, which is very scorpionic. So that in itself is creating a desire to truly understand what's going on in terms of transformations, itself very Pluto. But with Neptune and the moon together, we can get distortion, misunderstandings, mix-ups. And you can see that broadly Neptune is quite close to still being in a square with the Sun, also like Mercury in the 10th house. So I think when it comes to our financial employment situation, very important to keep our wits about us. But the other big standout in this chart, I'm sure some of you will have spotted it already, is that Saturn's on the 7th house. The sign of Gemini can be variable, as I mentioned before, in the way that it shares ideas. What Saturn's saying in a very firm way is say what you mean and mean what you say. So whether we're undergoing an interview, doing a presentation, applying for a job by putting together our curriculum vitae, absolutely vital that we reflect our experiences in a very precise but also honest way. So if we try to sort of pull the wool, the proverbial wool, over anyone's eyes, it could come back and bite us on the proverbial bum. Now, in terms of the aspects that are going to be forged, there's 4 major ones. Obviously, we start off with the trine with Pluto, but from the 14th through to the 17th, and exact on the 15th of June, there is a square with Saturn. Now, when people have this natally, it can give them a tendency to see their glass as being very much half empty, and at times even suffering with despondency to the point of being depressed at periods. And it can be, Saturn can take some of the joie de vivre away from Mercury. But if we think of the overall chart, Saturn in house 12, that's very much about the psychological domain, but Saturn can be limiting. So anxieties and worries could be shared with Mercury squaring with Saturn, which is exact on the 15th of June. But from the 14th to the 20th, there's actually a beautiful link between Mercury and Venus, which is very vivacious, very playful, with Venus in the rather grand Leo. If ever there was time to get together and mix and mingle and have some flirty moments, it sure is from that influence. We also have a terrific link between Mercury, how we think, how we speak, and Mars, also in Leo, our passions, which from the 19th to the 23rd is within 3 degrees, but exact on the 21st of June. So if we need to discuss something, we can share our ideas with passion, persuasion and conviction. But then, whoosh, we have that Neptunian influence again. So from the 24th to the 27th, but exact on the 24th, a really tricky right angle between Mercury and Neptune. And I would say that that is the trickster influence bar none. So if you're buying or selling anything online from the 24th to the 27th, connecting with someone on a dating app, poring over the details of a contract, you really need to distill the information really down to what's totally factual and meaningful, because Neptune can create such a shimmering distortion how we respond to a situation, how we see it, how someone explains it. It really isn't an easy influence, that one, so do be conscious of that. Now, please stay with me as I go through each of the 12 zodiac signs from Aries through to Pisces. But if you would like to really explore the wonder of technical astrology and how it can bring so much information into your life in a powerful and very revelatory way, if you give me 3 pieces of your personal birth data, or 2 if you don't know your time, but if you give me your time, date and place, or just your date and place, I can produce for you your life roadmap reports, which will give you a fantastic intimate knowledge of the patterns that have played out in your life so far. Within my special package of 30% off, you can also get your 12-month forecast, which will give you searing insights of your prospects in the next 12 months. Please see the link beneath this video for more. So Aries, if you have been experiencing a degree of inertia since the 3rd of April, particularly in terms of gaining traction around money or clarity around money, or messages have been delayed, or people are not getting back to you, or your own thinking has been clouded, or your energy lowered by the role of Saturn and Neptune in your 12th house, it wouldn't be a surprise. So the fact that Mercury squares off with Saturn from the 14th to the 17th of this month, and then from the 24th to the 27th with Neptune, suggests that rather cloying and slowing energy is not completely at an end. So although collectively for all of us we are going to see a speeding up, there can be some very vivacious and zesty exchanges, it's important to understand that you're going through a huge time in your life. Once the true north node returns to Aries on the 17th of July, you really are starting a completely new epoch. If you think back to about 17 years ago when the true north node last left your sign, you'll get an idea of what was going on then in the previous year and a half. You're about to start that again on the 17th of July. And of course you've had two big lunations this year, but one, well, they both really, to be fair, did interact with Jupiter. But the second solar eclipse in your sign also squared off with Pluto. So there may have been some big revelations that have emerged into the open, which have proved to be challenging for you to hear in terms of what people have been saying to you, or perhaps some secrets you've had, or some uncomfortable realities. But I feel, as I mentioned for your overall chart for this year, what's really happening here in a big picture way, Aries, is that certain elements of your life that have been binding and very important to you for a very long period of time are actually coming to an end. And you're going to see this in a big way when Saturn pitches into your sign in year 2025. But the new beginning is happening already, and it's really going to be speeded up by the arrival of that true north node. So it's a time to be philosophical, but it's also a time to process lots of information, lots of discussions and thoughts. And in doing so, if you give yourself the time to do that, you're going to gain so many valuable insights. So I would say be very open to bubbly, social, interactive situations, but be very aware of who's truly right for you, not just in terms of whether they're good people or bad people, but just in terms of their energy. The more atmospheric impact that people have on us is a very unspoken thing. We don't have to have any conflict. We don't even have to get to particularly know people. If we just feel that their energy doesn't necessarily create some sparkle within us, those are the ties to really steer clear of. Now Taurus, for you, having Mercury make the transition out of your sign into your second solar house is exciting, because I think some of the ideas you've been working on, and you've been very, very creative with Uranus's help, and of course then Jupiter turning up in your sign, the combination with the true north node, how fab is that across the 1st and 2nd of June? And all of that has been really encouraging you to burnish your creative talents, and also what makes you feel good about you as an individual. But if you are someone who's wanting to take an idea or a hobby and to firm it up into something more substantive to aid your income, the next 16 days can be particularly exciting. But just be aware that your expectations need to be realistic, because Saturn and Neptune in house 11 could see you disappointed if you're wanting instant riches. It's much better to keep going in your inimitable and admirable, very applied and patient way. That will get you the best results. Now Gemini, of course, having Mercury in your sign is something to really relish, but particularly because there's been such a cluster of energy in house 12, mainly Uranus, which has been affecting a lot of Gemini's nervous systems. So Mercury moving into your sign is going to bring you into the moment. If you have felt stressed, if you have felt rather run down, if there's been a lot of adrenal energy around you and it's been very hard to soothe that cortisol, I think Pluto moving into your sign is going to ease some of that. But you are being still encouraged to, you know, work at the more psychological side of life, embrace the more spiritual dimension, and be fine with that. But if there has been something that's been going around your mind on the back burner, now you can really get to grapple with it and be really dynamic. It's just that you have to be seen as being credible. That's not me saying you won't be, because of the energies that are applied at the start of this process from the restrictive and bossy and censorious Saturn and the rather mystical Neptune at the end of this transit, because both of those suggest that whatever you're trying to do as an individual will need to be scrutinized and pass the test of your boss, your parents, your partner, whoever you need the support and encouragement from or leadership from. They're going to need to be persuaded that any idea that you're grappling with has got some longevity, and it's not just something that really spellbinds you for the next 16 days and then fades away. They wanted to see something more substantive. Now, Cancer, for you, Pluto being back in the sign of Capricorn is interesting because, of course, that's house 7, very much about relationships. But Mercury in house 12 is asking you to be conscious of who might, and I do say might, along with the sun being there, be your hidden enemies, because that's traditional astrology's view of the 12th house. But the 12th house is also the sector of our journey each year where it's a culmination point. So it's an opportunity to pause and reflect upon what we've achieved. Because you've got such a lot of bubbly energy in the most friendly part of your chart, I think what you're just being asked to do is make sure that your friendships and alliances are with the people who really truly have got your back. But if you do find yourself wanting to withdraw a little bit over the next couple of weeks and just have some moments of pure peace and tranquility, you know, if you're someone who's really enjoys some alternative therapies, they can be extremely healing. And one of the great things they do is bring touch very often into the equation, if it's say massage or shiatsu, or if we go for a spa day, it's nice to just feel that water gushing on our bodies. So that can be very healing for you. But Mercury, of course, is how we think. And it's possible someone's going to share something that's quite secret with you over the next few weeks, or you may have some discussions that you want to keep very close to your chest. And with Saturn and Neptune in contact with Mercury, make sure you do keep those things close to your chest. Now, Leo, for you, Mercury moving into Gemini is all about friendship, sociability, the future, the network. So it's fun and it's bubbly. And because there's been a big emphasis on raising your profile professionally, and you've probably been working very hard on that for some while, I think what Mercury's now doing is saying, look, if you can get some moments of rest and relaxation and can get together with your favourite people, even if it's some of the professional alliances you have, that can be a good thing to do. But unfortunately, in more established relationships, if there's jealousy around any group or friendships, they are going to be revealed by both Saturn and Neptune, and which could be a bit awkward, just being really honest with you. Virgo, for you, the event chart shows that the ascendant's in your sign, and of course Mercury rules your sign, giving you great discrimination and powers of concentration and ability to really define what's truly important. But sometimes that can see you focusing on what's immediately required of you. And I feel that what you're being asked to do with Mercury in Gemini is really sort of step out and see the big picture, but particularly in terms of your career or your career progression. Some Virgos could definitely consider some new opportunities, and perhaps some of these will require some training, reskilling, or applying old experiences in a fresh environment. Be open to that, but unfortunately I think somebody close to you may be a bit of a proverbial wet blanket over the next few weeks. And with Venus and Mars in your 12th house, if there are any weaknesses around any relationships, they are going to be revealed, unfortunately, over the next few weeks and months. Now, Libra, for you, obviously the sign of Gemini shares your air tropicity. So the 9th house is where we enjoy thinking about our philosophies, our higher educational opportunities, travel, whether it's holidaying or travel in terms of our work. If you're someone who's a marketeer, the 9th house is very much about international affairs and boundaries. So if you want to fire your goods around the planet, this is a great opportunity for you to step up your efforts. But the energies of Saturn and Neptune are in your 6th house of where you need to be devoted and responsible and fulfill your obligations. So you could find yourself feeling a little bit conflicted about, do you go and get some free time and expand your horizons, or are you going to be, continuing to do exactly what's expected of you? So I think there may be some decisions to be made, because some friends can be very persuasive over the next few weeks, encouraging you to drop it all and break out. And if you do, I think it would be so therapeutic for you. Scorpio, having Mercury in your 8th house is terrific in a way, because it's very redolent of the energies of your sign, which doesn't necessarily receive information as it's very often intended to be given. In other words, how someone wants to cultivate you, you will see what they're really meaning. So your ability to decipher the subtext is extraordinarily strong, but it's going to be even stronger over the next couple of weeks. Just be aware, however, with Neptune and Saturn applying to Mercury, even if you do feel that you can work out people's motivations, I think some jealousy could be around some kind of social situation, perhaps even a romantic relationship. Sagittarius, Mercury moving into your opposite sign is really interesting. Mercury is in detriment in your sign, and technically, therefore, your sign is the 7th house of the sign of Gemini. So you've got kind of the reverse equation. But what I feel that you will love about this is, since the 3rd of April, I feel that a lot of things have probably felt very irritating or frustrating, or you may have felt like, rather stressed at times. And I think Mercury moving into your 7th house is going to give you the platform to be clearer about how you feel about things, but also enable you to just step back and let other people express their view without seeing it as being a particularly personal affront. The challenge, of course, is with Saturn and Neptune in house 4, everything can seem personal with those two in the 4th house. And everything around family, emotional or home matters can seem weighty. But there is an opportunity here to relate well, and with Venus and Mars in your 9th house, I think people who have got a big, fresh, sort of a scintillating view of the world are definitely going to be the people that intrigue you at the moment. But you are needing your soul and your emotional needs to be fed too. So that's a bit of a paradox at the present time. Now, Capricorn, Mercury moving here at 6th house, it's very Virgoan, so it's all about the details. But you've been generating some brilliant ideas. Now you can shape them into something more meaningful in a very precise way. Terrific. What about Saturn? Well, Saturn's just saying, don't try to do it all, because you can't do it all. You need to prioritize. What about Neptune? Don't believe everything you're told, particularly in the last week of June, because someone could tell you something to do with your work that's actually a barefaced lie. Just be conscious of that. Aquarius, Mercury moving into house 5 after that long transition through house 4 is something to really be upbeat about, because this is playful. You're going to find your sense of humour is really switching back on. Of course, with Saturn and Neptune in house 2, they're asking you to be mindful of money, and also of speculation, which the 5th house can be about. So I wouldn't splash the loot too freely over the next few weeks, but especially with Mercury in that terrific angle to Venus and Mars, across the 14th through to the 23rd, so the 10 days later in this month can be an extremely upbeat and playful time for you, so do enjoy those moments. Pisces. So for you, Mercury's moved into house 4, but of course you had Mars in that location from the 22nd of August right through to the 25th, I think it was, of March, may have been the 27th, due to that very long retrograde. So you're probably incredibly industrious about trying to improve where you live, but it also perhaps may have been very draining. I think you're going to get your reward now. It's going to start to make sense. Because Saturn's applying to Mercury, it's just that someone close to you would expect to be very supportive, encouraging and chuffed at what you've achieved, can just come along with sort of faint praise. Oh, yes, well, that's quite good, isn't it? You know, that kind of thing, which can be really annoying when we put our heart and soul into something. But rather people say, well, actually, I don't like it, but I can see you've worked really hard and you deserve great credit for that. That's a more honest, authentic way of being. So just watch out for that, because there can be a little bit of that as Mercury begins this journey and also towards the end of its transition too. It's been a real pleasure being with you. Thank you so much for joining me. Please do like, comment or subscribe, and thank you for bearing with me with this summer cold.